and coexistence and tolerance,
ونبذ الخلافات
to
والتوصل إلى اتفاق يروي الجبال
forfeit or forsake any feuds or any quarrels and build bridges of
ونمشي قدم
love and understanding in order to walk hand in hand together towards the future.
نعمر الأرض.
We have to build the land. We have to cultivate it. Our destiny is one.
واحد
We are keen
والمصلحة وحدة
because our interest is one.
وحدة.
Our happiness, our joy is one. We all aim to achieve the same goal.
الله.
Best of luck in achieving this. Peace be upon you all.
The reality is that despite all the effort that's been made here, things are going in the wrong direction.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
There are too many things dividing our world at this moment. We are heading in the right direction, but nowhere near fast enough.
Whether it will be enough will define this summit.
Let us now introduce a leader whose stewardship epitomizes the ideals of unity, diplomacy, and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Your Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates. I want to express my profound gratitude for the wonderful hospitality that we are enjoying in Dubai from the government and the people of the United Arab Emirates. COP28 President, Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber, I want to congratulate you on the positive start of the COP, with an expeditious approval of the agenda and the landmark operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. Congratulations. Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, friends, all protocol observed. Just days ago, I was on the melting ice of Antarctica. Not long before, I was among the melting glaciers of Nepal. These two spots are far in distance, but united in crisis. Polar ice and glaciers are vanishing before our eyes, causing a shock the world over, from landslides and floods to rising seas. But this is just one symptom of the sickness bringing our climate to its knees, a sickness only you, global leaders, can cure. Excellencies, Earth's vital signs are failing. Record emissions, ferocious fires, deadly droughts, and the hottest year ever. We can guarantee it even we are still in November. We are miles from the goals of the Paris Agreement and minutes to midnight for the 1.5-degree limit. But it is not too late. We can, you can prevent planetary crash and burn. We have the technologies to avoid the worst of climate chaos if we act now. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has charted a clear path to the 1.5-degree world. But we need leadership, cooperation, and political will for action, and we need it now. It's true, our world is unequal and divided. As we see in this region, conflicts are causing immense suffering and intense emotion. We just had the news that the bombs are sounding again in Gaza. And climate chaos is fanning the flames of injustice. Global heating is busting budgets, ballooning food prices, upending energy markets, and feeding a cost of living crisis. But climate action can flip the switch. And renewable energy is the gift that keeps on giving. It's good for our planet, our health, and our economies, cleaning our air, meeting the world's growing energy demand, connecting millions of people to affordable electricity, bringing stability and security to markets, and saving money, as renewable energy has never been cheaper. Excellencies, friends, the diagnosis is clear. The success of the COP depends on the global stocktake prescribing a credible cure in 3 areas. First, drastically cutting emissions. Current policies would lead to an earth-scorching 3-degree temperature rise. So the global stocktake must set clear expectations for economy-wide national determined contributions presented by all countries that cover all greenhouse gases and align with 1.5-degree limit. The G20, which represents 80% of the world's emissions, must lead. And I urge countries to speed up their net zero timelines to get there as close as possible to 2040 in developed countries and 2050 in emerging economies. Second, we cannot save a burning planet via fire holes of fossil fuels. We must accelerate a just, equitable transition to renewables. The science is clear. The 1.5-degree limit is only possible if we ultimately stop burning all fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, phase out with a clear time frame aligned with 1.5 degrees. And the global stocktake must not only commit to that, it must also commit to triple renewables, double energy efficiency, and bring clean energy to all by 2030. The economics are clear. The global shift to renewables is inevitable. The only question is how much heating our planet will endure before it happens. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is recommending ending our addiction to coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world. At the same time, according to the International Energy Agency, the oil and gas industry accounts for just 1% of clean energy investment. So allow me to have a message for fossil fuel company leaders. Your old world is rapidly aging. Do not double down on an obsolete business model. Lead the transition to renewables using the resources you have available. Make no mistake, the road to climate sustainability is also the only viable pathway to economic sustainability of your companies in the future. And I urge governments to help industry make the right choice by regulating, legislating, putting a fair price on carbon, ending fossil fuel subsidies, and adopting a windfall tax on profits. Excellencies, third, climate justice is long overdue. Developing countries are being devastated by disasters they did not cause. Extortionate borrowing costs are blocking their climate action plans, and support is far too little, far too late. The global stocktake must commit to a surge in finance, including for adaptation and loss and damage. And it must support reform of the multilateral development banks to leverage far more private finance at reasonable costs for developing countries in climate action. And developed countries must show how they will double adaptation finance to $40 billion a year by 2025, as promised, and clarify how they are delivering on the $100 billion as promised. Excellencies, the climate challenge is not just another issue in your inbox. Protecting our climate is the world's greatest test of leadership. And so I urge you to lead. Humanity's fate hangs in the balance. Make this COP count. Make this COP a game changer. Make this COP the renewal hope in the future of humankind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General.
شكرا لك سعادة الأمين العام. سيداتي وسادتي، لقد حان الوقت الآن لنحول طموحاتنا إلى عمل وأن نشارك المرئيات حول كيفية التقدم أو المضي قدما. رحبوا بأحد مؤيدي المناخ جلالة الملك تشارلز الثالث.
Your Highness, Secretary General, Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Presidents, Prime Ministers, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for his warm invitation to speak to you at the opening of COP28. 8 years ago, I was most touched to be asked to speak at the opening of COP21 in Paris, which of course culminated in the Paris Agreement, a landmark moment of hope and optimism when nations put differences to one side for the common good. I pray with all my heart that COP28 will be another critical turning point towards genuine transformational action at a time when already, as scientists have been warning for so long, we are seeing alarming tipping points being reached. I've spent a large proportion of my life trying to warn of the existential threats facing us over global warming, over climate change and biodiversity loss. But I was not alone. For instance, Sheikh Mohammed's dear father, Sheikh Zayed, was advocating for clean energy at a time even before the United Arab Emirates as such came into being. All these decades later, and despite all the attention, there is 30% more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now than there was back then, and almost 40% more methane. Some important progress has been made, but it worries me greatly that we remain so dreadfully far off track, as the Global Stocktake report demonstrates so graphically. The dangers are no longer distant risks. I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond countless communities which are unable to withstand repeated shocks, whose lives and livelihoods are laid waste by climate change. Surely, real action is required to stem the growing toll of its most vulnerable victims. Repeated cyclones batter vulnerable island nations like Vanuatu and Dominica. India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan have been experiencing unprecedented floods, and East Africa is suffering a decades-long drought. This past summer, in common with Spain, Greece, the United States, and many other countries, Canada experienced its most severe wildfire season on record, with 18.5 million hectares of land burned, causing terrible loss of life and property, and of course, releasing enormous amounts of greenhouse gases that contribute to dangerous feedback loops to which climate scientists have been alerting us for decades. As I've tried to say on many occasions, unless we rapidly repair and restore nature's unique economy based on harmony and balance, which is our ultimate sustainer, our own economy and survivability will be imperiled. Records are now being broken so often that we are perhaps becoming immune to what they are really telling us. When we see the news that this last Northern Hemisphere summer, for instance, was the warmest global average temperature on record, we need to pause to process what this actually means. We are taking the natural world outside balanced norms and limits and into dangerous, uncharted territory. We are carrying out a vast, frightening experiment of changing every ecological condition all at once, at a pace that far outstrips nature's ability to cope. As we work towards a zero-carbon future, we must work equally towards being nature positive. With what we are witnessing, our choice now is a starker and darker one. How dangerous are we actually prepared to make our world? Dealing with this is a job for us all. Change will come by working together and making it easier to embrace decisions that will sustain our world, rather than carry on as though there are no limits or as though our actions have no consequences. As you gather, ladies and gentlemen, for these critical negotiations, the hope of the world rests on the decisions you must take. I can only encourage you to consider some practical questions which might inform the task ahead of you. Firstly, how can our multilateral organizations, which were established at a different time for different challenges, be strengthened for the crisis we face? How can we bring together our public, private, philanthropic, and NGO sectors ever more effectively so that they all play their part in delivering climate action, each complementing the unique strengths of the others? Public finance alone will never be sufficient, but with the private sector firmly at the table and a better, fairer international financial system, combined with the innovative use of risk reduction tools like first loss risk guarantees, we could mobilize the trillions of dollars we need, in the order of $4.5 to $5 trillion a year, to drive the transformation we need. Secondly, how can we ensure that finance flows to those developments most essential to a sustainable future and away from practices that make our world more dangerous across every industry in every part of the world? I have, for instance, been heartened by some of the steps taken by parts of the insurance sector, which plays such a vital role in incentivizing more sustainable approaches and providing an invaluable source of investment to reduce the risks we face. Thirdly, how can we accelerate innovation and the deployment of renewable energy, of clean technology and other green alternatives to move decisively towards investment in this vital transition across all industries? For instance, how can we increase investments in regenerative agriculture, which can be a nature-positive carbon sink? What incentives are necessary? And how can those which have a perverse impact be eliminated with all due speed? Fourthly, how can we bring together different solutions and initiatives to ensure coherent long-term approaches across sectors, countries, and industries? For virtually every artificial source of greenhouse gas emissions, there are alternatives or mitigations which can be put in place. That is why it is encouraging to see industry transition plans being developed both nationally and globally, which will help each sector of our global economy onto practical pathways to a zero-carbon, nature-positive future. And, ladies and gentlemen, fifthly, how can we forge an ambitious new vision for the next 100 years? How can we draw on the extraordinary ingenuity of our societies, the ideas, knowledge, and energy of our young people, our artists, our engineers, our communicators, and importantly, our indigenous peoples, to imagine a sustainable future for people everywhere, a future that is in harmony with nature, not set against her. Ladies and gentlemen, in your hands is an unmissable opportunity to keep our common hope alive. I can only urge you to meet it with ambition, imagination, and a true sense of the emergency we face, and together with a commitment to the practical action upon which our shared future depends. After all, ladies and gentlemen, in 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do. So if we act together to safeguard our precious planet, the welfare of all our people will surely follow. And we need to remember, too, that the Indigenous worldview teaches us that we are all connected, not only as human beings, but with all living things and all that sustains life. As part of this grand and sacred system, harmony with nature must be maintained. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
Thank you, Your Majesty. And now, please help me welcome to the stage the leader of Brazil and COP30 host nation, His Excellency Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, who is the President of the United Arab Emirates, Your Majesty, King Charles III, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, Presidents and Heads of State. An African woman from Kenya, Wangari Maathai, who received the Nobel Peace Award, synthesized very well the dilemma of humanity in its relationship with nature. She said, "The generation that destroys the environment is not the generation that will pay for the price." The IPCC has warned us that we only have till the end of this decade to avoid that the global temperature would go beyond 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial levels. 2023 is already the hottest year in the last 125,000 years. Humanity suffers with drought, floods, and heat waves that are more extreme and frequent. In the north of Brazil, the Amazon region suffers one of the most tragic droughts of its history. In the south, we are facing tempests and hurricanes that lead along a lot of destruction and death. Science and reality show us that this time we will have to pay for the price. Now, the planet is not waiting anymore to demand from the next generation. The planet is tired of climate agreements that were not fulfilled and goals to reduce neglected carbon emissions, and the financing to the poor punches never comes. Eloquent and empty speeches. We need concrete actions. How many world leaders, in fact, are committed to save the planet? Only last year, the world had spent more than $2 trillion in weapons, amounts that could be invested to fight hunger and to confront the climate change issue. How many tons of carbon was were emitted by missiles that cruise over the skies and fall over innocent civilians, mainly children that are hungry. The count that has to be paid for the climate change is not the same for all. And the first one to pay for the price is the poorest population. The 1% richest part of the planet emits the same volume of carbon than 66% of the population. Rural workers that have their plantations, subsistence plantation devastated by drought, cannot feed anymore their families. Dwellers in the peripheries of the big cities that lose a little bit what they have when the floods come and destroys everything: furniture, homes, pets, and their sons. The injustice that penalizes the younger generation is only one of the faces of the inequalities that affect us. The world naturalized the disparities that are unacceptable in terms of income, gender, and race. I can't imagine to confront the climate change without fighting inequalities. Who are those that are in hunger have their existence imprisoned by the pain in the present and becomes incapable to think about the future, about tomorrow. To reduce socioeconomic vulnerability means to build resilience vis-à-vis the extreme events. It also means that we should have the conditions to redirect all the endeavors to fight global warming. In 2009, when I participated in the COP28 in Copenhagen, the architecture of the climate change convention was almost in collapse. The negotiations failed, and it was necessary a great effort to recover the trust and reach to the Paris Agreement in 2015. Coming back to the presidency in Brazil, I can see that today we are in a similar situation. The non-fulfillment of the commitments that were taken erodes the credibility of the regime. It is necessary to rescue the belief in multilateralism. It is unexplainable that the UN, although all the endeavors, it shows itself incapable to keep peace simply because some of its members profit from war. It is regrettable that the agreements from the Kyoto Protocol of 1997 or the Paris agreements of 2015 are not being implemented. The rulers could not exempt themselves from their responsibilities. No country will solve their problems alone. We are all obliged to act together beyond our borderlines. Brazil is willing to lead as a role model, and we adjusted our climate change goals, and they're the most ambitious ones that many developed countries have. We have reduced drastically the deforestation of the Amazon region, and we will have zero deforestation till 2030. We have formulated an ecological transformation plan to promote green industrialization, low carbon agriculture, and bioeconomy. We have forged a common vision with the Amazon countries, and we built bridges with other countries that detain tropical forests. The world is already convinced of the potential of the renewable sources of energy. Now is the time to face the debate about the slow motion pace of the decarbonization of the planet and to work towards an economy that will be less reliant on fossil fuel. We have to do it, and in a way that is urgent and fair. Let's work in a constructive way with all countries to pave the way between this COP28 and COP30 that we will host in the heart of the Amazon tropical forest. We do not have two planet Earths. We are a unique species called humanity. All of us aim to make the world capable to host with dignity the totality of their inhabitants, and not only a privileged minority. So I'd like to invite, as Pope Francis said, we are all brothers. We need to live in fraternity. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigada, President Lula. And now, please join me in welcoming the co-founder and environmental director of Brazil's Instituto Zage, an indigenous youth-led organization dedicated to reforestation and preservation of traditional knowledge, Ms. Isabel Prestes da Fonseca.
Isabel, indigenous people of represent. I am Isabel Gagran, a guardian. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Isabel Gagran, a guardian with my family of Lacanono-Choclan indigenous land. I am here today as an indigenous woman, a mother, a sister, a woman being who lives on this earth like you, with you. Every day, I witness all that is happening with much sadness, the devastation of our forests. Only 2% of our sacred biome survives. And the Zag tree, our millennia-old Araucaria ancestor, is on the verge of extinction. Our ancestors predicted this. They warned us about the future when the world would need our knowledge. Today we face environmental imbalances, climate catastrophes, drying rivers, crumbling mountains, and melting ice. The planet heats up due to human action. In southern Brazil, snow has practically disappeared due to the drastic reduction of our sacred tree, our araucaria. In all places where our araucaria is still present exclusively in the snow. We are running against time and have already planted thousands of trees. We are no longer just protecting the future, but acting in the now. In the name of the indigenous lives, the forest and biodiversity, join us in this fight. We are nature, trying to defend itself. This is a call to action. We can no longer delay. United, we will restore our earth, preserve our heritage, and rescue lost harmony. We at Instituto ZAG, we are not just asking for support, we are asking for companionship. I invite everyone to join this mission, to become part of this journey for the regeneration of nature and life. Together, we will preserve not just a legacy, but the legacy of all humanity. Together, we will be the change. We have the solution for the climate changes problems. Olame Montamentate. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigada, Ms. Prestes da Fonseca. Ladies and gentlemen, we are truly humbled to host you in the United Arab Emirates. May these coming days bring us together in collective action. If we take one thing away from today's ceremony, let it be that we have gathered here from around the world with the same goal: to unite, to act, and to deliver. And so we must. Welcome to the COP of Action. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Please remain seated until the heads of state have left the theater. All gold badges holders will be able to exit the theater from the rear of the theater. Kindly follow the ushers. And thank you for joining us today at the World Climate Action Summit at COP28.
London, February 2012. 60 years since this city and the world woke up to the news that the country had a new monarch.
Flags are at half-mast for a man of quiet dignity who kept firm the bonds of empire.
George VI died in his sleep at Sandringham. His daughter Elizabeth was in Kenya on a tour of the Commonwealth, which she and the Duke of Edinburgh had agreed to undertake because the king was too ill to go. 36 hours later, she'd be back in London.
It was this sad, grey figure confronting the nation, confronting the world for the first time. She knew she would never have almost another moment's freedom.
For the first, but not for the last time, the appearance of this woman created a sense of reassurance that now all would be well.
This sort of image of incredible youth and hope, and yet huge sadness. It's a sort of end and a beginning.
Australia's Parliament building in Canberra.
The new queen was 25. She'd already pledged her life, whether it be long or short, to the nation. But in 1952, perhaps even she could not have imagined that her reign would span 6 decades, that it would run parallel to the most momentous events of the post-war world, and that it would give her a view of life unequaled by any head of state.
She remembers people. She's got a very good memory.
Much has changed, but so much has stayed the same.
मौसम की शिद्दत और लंबे रास्तों की सख्ती जब आड़े आए तो सिर्फ रूबिया TIR की प्रो एफिशिएंट टेक्नोलॉजी ही इंजन को सख्त जान बनाए। रूबिया, सख्त जान, इंजन की पहचान।
History Hit is a streaming platform that is just for history fans, with fantastic documentaries covering fascinating figures